Welcome, everyone. I'm Patty Martell, supervising producer at CNBC and the co-host of Women in Wealth. This is an ongoing digital series where we dissect the biggest issues facing women in the corporate world and explore ways in which women can be smarter investors and entrepreneurs and take charge of their futures. We want to arm women with the knowledge and insight from female money managers, experts, and business leaders to decode Wall Street jargon and open up the perceived boys club around money and business. I have two guests today. First is Sandra Campos. She's a CEO, board member, and entrepreneur. Most recently, she was the CEO of Diane von Furstenberg. She worked her way up to the C-suite, and her latest project, Latina Disruptors, she's supporting and empowering other female founders. We also have Bianca Gates, the co-founder and CEO of Birdies. She'll join us shortly. But Sandra, let me start with you. Your background is in retail and in fashion. We've heard from some retailers already about some of the challenges, some of the softness. What are you seeing?
It depends on the market, depends on the demographic you're targeting. So luxury consumers are still selling and they are still performing well. We have certain demographics that are being impacted more, and it's mainly in the middle. So if you've got really the mid-level retailers and brands that are out there, they're being affected more. And if you've got, some of the luxury brands, you're being affected less. As we've seen, some of those retail price points have just continued to escalate, and they're still getting the profit in return. So the consumers don't mind as much when they have the money and they have the financial wealth already. It's the ones that are being more impacted on a day-to-day basis as it relates to the number of trips they can take and how much gas they have to purchase for their vehicles and the inflation and how it's impacting the amount of groceries that they're able to buy for their homes and their families.
And that's really inflation driven, right? Because it is affecting all parts of the market. But let's talk about, because I think we have talked a little bit about the high-end consumer really kind of holding up. Is that what you're seeing also?
Yes, it is. The high-end consumer, definitely we're seeing that, while they're still purchasing, the average order value and how much they're spending is definitely less than it was. So they're watching a little bit more carefully, but they're still actually out there spending and buying. And I believe that holiday is going to be, I think it's going to be pretty good as far as that goes in terms of where we're going to see and experience some of these retail sales. They'll definitely be in the luxury scale will be less impacted, let's say.
I also wanted to get your take on an M&A deal that we saw cross just a couple of days ago, and that's Estee Lauder buying Tom Ford. Huge deal, right? Nearly $3 billion for his line.
Huge.
Right. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, amazing deal. Yeah. Incredible what he was able to do and what he's been able to build throughout his career. And I think that realistically, Estee Lauder looked at it like they have a brand that's for the long term that they're going to be able to take and expand across various categories. They're not going to just keep it within fragrance, which is where they've really had the bulk of that business, but they're going to be able to expand it across a whole host of different categories with licensees, which they had one that actually invested in it from the eyewear perspective. And with that brand, Tom Ford really changed fragrance in terms of how much a consumer was willing to spend on a fragrance bottle. And so that's going to be something that they're going to continue to try to see across what categories can they do the same thing.
A very high end price point, right? That is, and they have that there's nothing affordable about Tom Ford.
No, premium prestige, absolutely. But you're getting something special, and it's like anything else in terms of luxury. It's the craftsmanship and it's the artistic aesthetic that goes into the brand. And over many, many years, he's developed his brand. And obviously it's very credible and the consumer sees it as high value.
Let's talk about you and your path because, you and I have talked about this, but, we're both first generation Latinas. You grew up in Texas. You have told me this story that I think is really incredible and just really translates across so the story I think just really speaks to so many women and first generation Latinas, especially about working in your parents' business when you were young. Yeah.
Which story was that?
You worked in a tortilla factory. How did that shape you?
Well, I think it shaped me now when I look at it and I think about how many different ways it shaped me, because my parents were both entrepreneurs out of necessity. They moved to this country when they were teens and didn't have the education and didn't have the language. So as they started out in business, they had to figure out how they were going to sustain a family of six. So in doing so, they had tortilla factories. And when I thought I was much older at the time, but now recently my mother's moving out of her home and we found a diary when I was 10 years old. And at 10, I was actually pretty involved in the tortilla factory. So, I had to work when no matter what, sometimes she pulled us out of school because they needed extra help. They didn't have enough workers that would come into the factory. And so we'd have to go and I'd be there packaging up boxes, making the dough, working on the assembly line, the whole thing. So as fast forward into my life and my career, I realized that number one, I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Number two, I've always tried to figure out how the logistics work in terms of getting product made and being able to put it in a box and ship it out to the ultimate consumer or customer. And all of that in between, it really lit a very special type of perspective for me now that I think, has definitely impacted my career as I have been broad in my skills and broad in my experience across every facet of the industry. And that really stems from having seen every piece of the tortilla factory in that business, even though it's not apparel and it's not a different category, it's food, but it's still the same process. You're making product, you've got a consumer in mind, you have clients that you're selling it to, you have a retail store in the front, you need to ship product via trucks and get it to your location. So all of the product development, supply chain, sales, all of those skills really transferred into everything I've done.
Was there a defining moment that led you to this point in your career?
I think the defining moments have really been in my life where I didn't have another option. So I never looked at it as if I could do anything else other than work really hard, move up through the corporate ladder, because that was the choice that I made in doing so. And, it wasn't about quitting. I was never going to let the 99 no's stop me. So I worked until I got that 100th person that would finally say yes. And, throughout my life, I think it's just been in my career, it's really been about the resiliency, the work ethic, the discipline and the diligence and making sure that I'm doing everything that I can to continually learn and gain new skills that are going to help me be a better executive, be a better leader, and a better entrepreneur.
One of the projects that you're doing that I participated in just a few weeks ago was the Latina Disruptors Breakfast. You really have created this community of support and empowerment for other female entrepreneurs. And why did you start that? Like, why now?
Patty, I really didn't embrace being a Latina throughout my life until about 5 years ago. So I'm embarrassed to say that, but at the same time, I'm trying to play catch up now. So over the last 5 years, as I've been helping Latinos and working with entrepreneurs as an advisor, I sit on several boards, I advise several small startups, and I've seen that there are all these Latinas that were doing incredible things, but yet we weren't hearing about these stories. So having built businesses and many brands over my career, I thought, well, why can't we do this now? Why can't we connect the investment community with the entrepreneur, with the media, and showcase these incredible women who are disrupting their industries, who are scaling their businesses, who are raising capital, and no one's talking about them, right? We know what the statistics are in terms of women investments and women on boards, and all the numbers are really they're pretty abysmal, right? So we really look at that and we know that we have a lot of room and a lot of growth to make. But in this case, I looked at it, I said, I can do this. I have a platform. I'm going to use my platform and my experience, and whatever platform and experience there is, has certainly led me to be able to help others. So I took 6 women within the consumer space and we highlighted them to the media, to the investor community. And we're doing it again with women in technology because they are disruptive. They're doing incredible things again that sometimes I hear people say, oh, I didn't know she was Latina. And other times it's like, oh, I didn't even know that business existed. But meanwhile, they're really scaling. They're doing great business across the globe, not just in the US. And so I felt like now is the time, as we know the census has told us that we're 20% of the population in the US now, and Latinas are actually starting businesses faster than the non-Hispanics. So there's a lot of statistics out there that prove that we are hard workers, we're able to really create scale, create value, and we're the new drivers of the economy.
And one of the things that I really loved about that event, Sandra, is that it was women supporting other women and women of color supporting other women of color. And through that event, I met another entrepreneur because you're a super connector. and one of your but one of your superpowers is really bringing people together, and connecting people so that they help each other, or even if it's someone that you should know. So let me bring in our second guest. Bianca Gates is the CEO of Birdies, an affordable casual footwear line that she co-founded in 2015 while still working as an advertising executive. Bianca, welcome.
Thank you. So good to see you all. And Sandra, yes, you are a super connector. I am so grateful for you. You are amazing. And Patty, thank you for having me today and helping to share our story.
Absolutely. Bianca, let me move on to you, because you started Birdies, like we said, in 2015, because you wanted a luxury indoor shoe. But neither you or your co-founder had any experience in designing or manufacturing shoes, right?
That is 100% correct. No background in fashion, retail. Neither of us had started businesses before, but we shared this vision of coming home, taking off our high heels, slipping on these delicious, comfortable at-home slippers, but meant for the entertaining space of the home, not your traditional bedroom, bathroom slippers. We love to entertain. We love to have conversations around the dinner table. And we realized we were either barefoot, wearing socks, or wearing pajama slippers. And so we wanted to solve the problem. It was very niche. I don't think we had a vision for this being a venture-backed footwear brand in the future, but we just had a lot of fun trying to solve the problem, the small problem for us.
And so what was the moment for you? Because I saw that Meghan Markle started wearing them not long after you launched in 2015. What was the moment that the company really blew up?
I mean, I would say really blew up. It was when she was wearing us. I think at the time she had about 1 million followers on Instagram, and people really deeply connected with her and with her story. So whatever she was sharing with her audience, people wanted to buy.
This is pre-Harry.
Oh, this is way pre-Harry. Yeah. And we, at the time, Marissa and I, my co-founder, we each invested $50,000 to start Birdies, which, as you might imagine, is not a lot of money to start a global footwear brand. But that's all the money that we had. And so we were very precious with our product. We were not seeding to influencers at the time. We literally said if there was one person we would want to seed our slippers to, who would it be and why? And we created this muse. It was the Birdies muse. Who is Birdie? And Meghan Markle fit the bill precisely. And so we thought she's the person that we want to gift one pair of these precious slippers to. And we found a way to get them to her. And much to our surprise, about a month later, she was wearing us everywhere. I think the biggest challenge was we were trying to solve the problem of what to wear when you're entertaining friends and family at home. And she was wearing us to the grocery store, to brunch, on long walks in New York City, on set in Los Angeles. And so we were like, what is happening here? We love that she's wearing us, but that's not the use case. And I think that's when the business really blew up, beyond just being an at-home slipper, but an everyday, comfortable, fashionable shoe.
It's the power of influence, isn't it?
It's the power of influence and the power of pivoting. You know, at that moment, we just thought, as a founder, do you stay focused on the problem you were looking to solve? Or do you pivot based on how consumers are reacting to the product that you've launched? And we spent a lot of time debating this. And ultimately we thought, why don't we try to see what this could look like as an outdoor shoe? And we made that pivot. At the time we were birdieslippers.com. We were hell-bent on finding who owned birdies.com. And we found the person who owned the domain, lived in Dubai. We invested a lot of money to buy it. But for us, that was the changing point in the trajectory of our business, where we were not just going to be known as an in-home slipper, but the most comfortable, fashionable, everyday shoe that keeps up with her busy life.
You mentioned putting in your own money. Excuse me. You and your co-founder putting your own money to launch it. What has fundraising been like for you? Because we know that from statistics and reports that women get such a small sliver of the fundraising pie that's out there. What was your experience?
Yeah, we had read those statistics. And so early on we said, well, this is not going to be a venture-backed business, and not because we didn't want it to be, but we almost just assumed that we would never get funding. And so we each invested $50,000. And that just got us to the product. We had no money left over for advertising or marketing, but we had to make that money work for us. We had to be profitable right at launch to be able to reinvest our profits back into the business. And then we gained traction with people like Meghan Markle wearing us. Sarah Jessica Parker was storing us early on, and editors and anchors like you were talking about us. And so our shoes had been on the Today Show early on. And so we were picking up enough momentum that 2 years into it, in about 2017, I was still working full time at Facebook, paying the bills so that I could also moonlight as an entrepreneur. We received an email from an industry insider, Andy Dunn, who's the co-founder and former CEO of Bonobos, who just said, I'm hearing about Birdies all over Manhattan. I'd love to write you guys a check for $100,000 and help you raise a seed round. And that was the beginning of our fundraising. He connected us with Kirsten Green, the founder of Forerunner Ventures. And she led our seed investment at the end of 2017 with $1 million check. And I think not only having the capital from her and some other friends of ours and angel investors, but her name and her firm gave us, made it possible for other firms to take a look. And so she was really, really, really helpful in the early days. And the following year, we raised $8 million, led by Norwest Ventures, and they preempted our A round. So, unlike what the stories we hear out there, for us, it did come relatively easier. But I think it was because we spent the first couple of years really honing in on the product, becoming profitable, and running a really good business that suddenly investors were taking notice.
And that is part of the issue, right? Is that because women have typically had less funding, right? They do more with less. And
Yeah.
you are resourceful and you're scrappy. And I think that sometimes we don't have that luxury that some of your male counterparts may have, where they're burning through cash, or we'll go through the cash and then go back and ask for more funding.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit of a luxury, but at times it could also inhibit your own creativity and running a profitable, scalable business. Too much money can prevent you from being creative. I've seen a lot of other direct-to-consumer companies throwing money at customer acquisition and throwing money at marketing that, the reality was it probably wasn't the best decision, but they had access to capital to do it. Mm-hmm. We have never run the business that way. We have needed to be profitable from day one. We assumed we would never get funded again. And we've been able to stretch our dollars. We've raised $10 million. We're doing over $50 million in sales this year. We are profitable. And that's unlike what you're reading out there in the market. It's unlike the direct-to-consumer companies that have gone public in the last couple of years. They're burning through cash. They don't know how else to grow without burning through cash. We do know. And the way to do it is to really find that way to connect deeply with the customer, understand what her pain points are, what her needs are. When we screw up, we acknowledge it, we apologize, we fix it, and we move on. And we've built a very strong relationship with our customer. We have about 45% of our business is repeat. So we know that once she tries Birdies on, she loves us and she buys 3, 4, 5 pairs. And we have about a 20% return and exchange rate. So our product fits. If she feels good in them, she looks great in them. And we've really taken the time to perfect the product so that we can minimize returns and maximize love for our shoes.
I mean, that's the formula. That's the formula, really, especially in consumer products. It's all about knowing your customer and making sure that everything that you do is supporting that customer. So you've done it so well. You've done it so well, Bianca.
Well, it's interesting because it's that relationship that you have with your customer, right? Because listen, the ballet slipper has been around forever, right? Like, you didn't invent the casual slipper.
Right.
So it's really about that connection and that experience that they have when they order a pair of Birdies.
Well, and I think also they're like walking on air, though. Sorry to interrupt you, but you have to really acknowledge that these slippers are extraordinarily comfortable. It literally is like walking on air. So you've created a product that actually is really functional, looks really great, and is very affordable and accessible.
Thanks, Sandra. No, we paid special attention to why do our shoes fit and feel different than every other shoe on the market. But I think more than anything, today's consumer, she wants to be proud of the brands that she's wearing. We realize that she can buy any shoe brand. And as you pointed out, shoes are shoes. But when somebody says, I love your shoes, she wants to be able to say, thank you. And This is a mission-driven company. They've just become a certified B Corp. They believe in lifting up women. I'm a part of that community. That is the value that I share and this company shares. And this is why I choose to buy my products from Birdies versus somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the supply chain, because you do manufacture abroad, right? And there have been so many challenges throughout the pandemic. I mean, some of them that have even lingered now. What are you seeing?
So many. I mean, first of all, the supply chain constraints and challenges affected everybody globally. And we were no different. On top of that, as Sandra knows, our third-party partner that we were working with to help us design and manufacture our products overseas filed for bankruptcy in the middle of the pandemic. And so that left us without that connective tissue between us and our manufacturing partners overseas. So we had to scramble to build relationships late night via Skype to make sure that they felt comfortable working with us directly, and vice versa. During the pandemic, we ended up having to airship 80% of our shoes. To put it into context, every shoe that gets flown in is about $14 to airship, compared to when we boat ship our shoes, it's about $2 a shoe. So we had to make the tough decision, if we still wanted to keep up with the demand of our customer, how do we get the shoes in? And we took a hit on margin, but we felt like we really wanted to serve our customer during that time. Ultimately, our business doubled during COVID. Like I said, we're doing over 50 million in sales this year. We did a phenomenal job, but it did eat into our margins. So now moving forward, we're seeing the supply chain challenges much more minimal now. I would say almost 90% of our shoes are on boat, fortunately, but we've also extended the lead time it takes for us to make sure that we give ourselves enough time to get the shoes from Asia on the boat and into the ports here in the US.
And are you seeing some of the inventory? Are you experiencing some of the inventory issues that other retailers have? We've heard about some of the deep discounts retailers are going to have to offer, especially during the holidays, right? That's going to put pressure on the margins.
Yeah. It's interesting, again, going back to funding, like we have been so undercapitalized that we never had the extra money to buy excess inventory. So we always had to buy based on the demand we were seeing. So we are not in that position. We are sticking true to our Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We actually launched a velvet collection discount today. But other than that, we haven't had to keep up with the deep discounting because we're buying based on the demand and we haven't overpurchased. For next year, we recognize there's going to be a lot of challenges. And so we're making sure that we're not overbuying and spending more of our time and energy on really perfecting and improving the product. We have really incredibly beautiful, unique design styles that we're launching with. So while the buy will be deeper, it'll be a much more exciting product that we're going to deliver her next year.
And I saw that you have moved into sneakers, right? And I feel like, is it the timing also that women are going back to the office and maybe, they don't want to wear heels. I don't want to wear heels anymore. I find it hard to believe that, we used to do that for so many years and wear high heels all day. Is that benefiting you? Are you seeing that shift?
I was saying the other day, my daughter and our family went to a bat mitzvah, a 13-year-old girl's birthday party, and all of these beautiful young girls were wearing their beautiful dresses, and all of them had sneakers on. Like, that was not the case when I was growing up. You dress up, you put on heels, and so, yeah, I think things have changed. And by the way, these girls were dancing on the dance floor, like, with so much energy because their feet were so comfortable. I remember my days living in New York City, walking multiple avenues and streets with my male colleagues. And I was clacking around in heels as they were wearing flats. And it was really embarrassing because I was out of breath trying to keep up with them. At times my heel would get caught in a grate and now I need to slow them down to pull my heel out of the grate. And by the time we get to the meeting, I'm exhausted, I'm sweaty, I'm embarrassed. And I feel like I was holding them back. And I'm sure they felt like I was holding them back. And I don't ever want to be in that place again. I think having comfortable sneakers that still maintain the integrity of your stylish outfit will help you run to your meetings and appointments and help you, like we say here at Birdies, help you fly through your day with ease. So I think that there is a market for heels, and I do love my heels at times, but I think day to day, I'm loving my Birdies.
You were wearing heels. You were wearing sneakers the day that I met you at that breakfast last month. And I thought,
with a power suit. How cool is that?
With a power suit, exactly. I thought, oh my gosh, that is genius.
Well, and
Sandra?
I was wearing Birdie sneakers as I was running to my aircraft running very, very late, and literally could not have been more comfortable. I'm putting another plug in for Birdies.
Thank you.
Don't have Birdies.
Thank you.
So Bianca, you have also moved into brick and mortar, right?
Yes. Yes.
Are there plans to have more physical locations?
We'd like to in the future. I think right now we're still trying to recoup, the margin hit that we took over the last couple of years. Opening stores is expensive. We actually opened our first store in 2018. So we recognized early on that we needed to reach her where she wants to be, and she wanted to be a part of our Birdies community. And our Birdies store is set up like a home, so we welcome her into our home. We entertain her, and we had tremendous success with our first store here in San Francisco. So we opened a second store in Los Angeles. We do have plans to expand, but I think over the next year, we're going to just keep replenishing the money that we need to. And we would love to open some brick and mortar stores. But in the meantime, we are working with wholesale partners, which is something that we've proven to be successful with our partnership with Nordstrom a couple of years ago. We're launching with Zappos, I think, this week. We have a couple of other wholesalers that we're working with for next year. So, again, I think it's how can we help her find our product in ways that, we don't need to overspend. The reality is these days, consumer acquisition costs are very high. And so our margin is the same acquiring a customer directly as it is selling through third-party companies. And so we want to lean on any areas that we can to continue to focus on margin and get the word out about our shoes.
Where do you find inspiration? Like who I know that you have designers, but I feel like obviously so much of the brand is a reflection and an extension of you and your co-founder. What inspires you? How does that work?
I think people like Sandra, people like you, just, people that look like me who have done something so extraordinary makes me believe that maybe there's a chance that I can do it too. And so throughout my career, starting with my mom as an immigrant, she immigrated here in her 20s from Bolivia. She didn't speak any English when she moved here at 22. And she worked, at the university making sandwiches in the back because she could not handle currency because she couldn't speak the language. And so, but her desire to persevere despite the challenges, and she did, was the first time in my life that I said, okay, I'm going to be faced with a lot of challenges. Let's not focus there. Let's focus on what the opportunities are and go there.
And Sandra, what about you? What drives you? What inspires you?
Wow. I have 3 kids. They definitely drive me. And I've been a single mom for the last 17 years. So it's been something that for me, again, I've been working really hard to make sure that I'm providing for them and my family. But again, as I mentioned before, not having another backup plan. This is my plan. So I was going to make my plan work. I always knew and envisioned myself as a CEO and leading a business and running businesses and building businesses. And that's what I wanted to do. So that's what I do. And I think a lot of what has driven me is really my own ability to withstand some of that negativity and make sure that no matter what, I'm looking at the positive and trying to ensure that my outcome is a successful one that I've planned on. I mean, I know that sounds obnoxious, but honestly, it's really just about believing in yourself, because that's really who you have to believe in first before anybody else will believe in you. You have to believe in yourself.
And you have a great saying that you have shared with us in 2 different sayings, but for those who don't know it, can you just share it now?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to credit Carla Gallardo because she's the founder of Cuyana, and she's the one that brought this up to me, which I'm now using everywhere. And that is that mentors speak to you, coaches speak with you, but sponsors speak about you. And we all need all 3 of those in our lives. So now I'm trying to, not only be number 1, number 2, but very much number 3.
Absolutely. And creating these communities like what you're doing with Latina Disruptors, and just bringing us together. I think it's very powerful and very empowering for sure. But thank you both so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Patty.
Who was watching. Thank you, Bianca. I'm gonna see you next time you're in New York.
Okay, I love it.
Thank you.
All.
Bye.
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 Hi. Oh, she logged off.